Hi, folks. In the 1820s in Texas, Stephen F. Austin worked very hard to fulfill his dad's dream. Moses Austin was his dad, and his dad had the idea of bringing Americans into Texas to settle the state. And so he was able to get an agreement, and Stephen Austin followed through on that agreement. In fact, because the Texas government stayed shaky for a while and they had to go to Mexico to get approval, so even in the very beginning, the agreement was on shaky grounds, but Stephen F. Austin was determined to get it done. Let me show you what he did in terms of making agreements for the people to make it attractive to people in the United States where land costs at least $1.25 an acre. Yeah, $1.25 an acre. Well, you got to remember it's 1821. Okay. Anyway, in addition, U.S. law required settlers to buy at least 80 acres and to pay the full price in cash. Few people had the $100 in cash needed to buy this much land. Austin, however, would accept goods as payment or allow settlers to pay the fees over time. Austin advertised for settlers in New Orleans, and applications poured in from eager men and women. So he had the group going, they're ready to go. So what happened? Well, people came in. Austin was careful to select settlers. He made sure that they came in. He believed his colony's success depended upon having hardworking, law-abiding people. All settlers also had to become Mexican citizens and to convert to Catholicism. And that was something that was interesting because most Americans would be probably Protestant, but in order to come to Texas, they had to agree to convert to Catholicism. Okay, so they go ahead and convert to Catholicism, and what happens is the first settlers to Austin colonies arrived in 1821. Andrew Robinson was one of the first, and they camped near west of the Brazos River. Soon afterward, John Kuykendall established his first settlement on the Colorado River. Others included James Brown, Josiah Bell, who is Austin's friend, Josiah Bell, and younger brother James Brown Austin. So Josiah Bell and James Brown Austin settled. So you got many different families settling. What did Austin do? Well, he knew that he had to make sure everything was secure with the agreements. So what he did was, it says in March 1822, some 150 people had settled along the Brazos and Colorado rivers. Austin tried to help the colonists adjust to the hardships. He was trying to help them be ready and prepared. He said, in the life in the wilderness, food supplies were scarce because of the difficulties in transporting goods to the area. Some were disheartened and went back. However, an even greater problem faced the colony. Moses Austin had made a settlement contract with the Spanish government, the one that was in charge of Texas. That's no longer there. So we had to go to Mexico to get a real agreement from the people in Mexico City, which meant he had to leave. He had to leave. He left Josiah Bell in charge of his settlement in March 1822. Took about a year. He took a group down to Mexico City, and on the way down there, they found themselves kidnapped by some raiders or Indians or some group. There was Comanches, excuse me. The journey was more than 1,000 miles through rugged and dangerous land. At one point, some 50 Comanches captured Austin's group, but the party was released and unharmed. At another point, Austin dressed as a beggar to fool robbers. So on the way, they had their challenges, right? On the way to Mexico City. Once they got to Mexico City, Austin found the officials were trying to figure out what was going on. It was disorganized, but he still had to get an agreement to take back to his people. So it says, Austin, however, was determined to wait as long as it took. Between meetings with officials, he studied Spanish to become fluent. Austin's patience eventually paid off. In January 1823, the Mexican government passed the Imperial Colonization Law. Under this law, Austin's land grant was secure, and he could continue to bring in settlers from the United States. Families of farmers in the colony would receive 177 acres, and ranching families would receive 4,428 acres. Single men would receive one-third of these amounts. to get the greatest possible amount of land, most settlers in Austin County claimed to be both farmers and ranchers. In addition, settlers were exempt or free from paying taxes for 6 years. Austin himself was received about 100,000 acres once he had settled 300 families in the colony. Once he settled 300 families in the colony, he got 100 acres for himself. That's a nice little prize. As a colony leader, Austin was charged with forming a local government and acting as a judge. He was also empowered to form a militia or army made of citizens who would serve when necessary. Austin's determination and willingness to work with Mexican officials won him success. In the end, his colony was the only one ever to operate under the imperial colonization law. The ruler who had issued it, Augustin de Iturbide, gave up power, and the new government had its own plans of colonization. However, they allowed Austin to maintain his colony under the old law. In April 1823, Austin headed back to Texas. Not bad for at least getting things started, right? Kind of a rough road, but you just don't give up. You have your goal in mind. You decide to get it done, and that's what Stephen F. Austin, actually Moses Austin, had the goal. Get it settled, bring the families, and Stephen F. Austin, the son, carried out his father's dream, carried out his father's wishes, got an agreement, and started the settlement of Texas. Pretty cool stuff, folks. Talk to you later.